With that, I want to introduce our honored, esteemed guest speaker, second time here, so we're really even doubly honored to have him here. He's an officer, he's the lieutenant, correct?
Captain.
Captain. Oh, captain.
Sorry.
Maybe used to be lieutenant, now you're captain. Oh my God. 2 stars.
That's right.
4 stars.
José Walehwa.
Perfect. Excellent.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. And Fred is very kind because, they say third time's a charm. I was here once before, and then I messed up and left you all hanging one other time. So I want to, first of all, apologize. I want to lead with that. I had some conflicts that I didn't plan correctly, but I'm so happy that I was able to come back and actually have a conversation with everybody and just really kind of take this wherever you want to go. For those who I haven't met before, I'll just give you a little bit of my background. If you see my name in writing, it's a little different, and that's because I was born in Uganda and came to the United States in 1976 during Idi Amin, when Idi Amin was having his reign of terror. So our family fled into Kenya. What's that?
That before you were born?
No, I was a baby. I admit that. I don't remember a lot of it. I was not quite 2 years old, but about 5 of us left overnight and spent the night in Kenya and then ended up in the United States just to flee all that stuff. And of course, I don't need to talk to this group about the impacts of that experience for my family and kind of set us on the trajectory we're at today. So with that said, and I'll give you a quick background about myself. So I work for the Brea Police Department. I'm the captain who oversees our patrol division. Previously, I actually covered our investigations division, which is basically dispatchers, investigators. I guess the best way to describe it is everybody in uniform, that's under my control. I'm half of the department and my partner handles the other half. The chief is retiring sometime in the next year, so just cross your fingers because I'll be the only one left. So as long as I don't mess up too bad, maybe I got a shot of maybe being the top guy, so we'll see. We'll see. No predictions, definitely no predictions. I'm not going to call that, but I'm just going to try to work hard to do that. The lion's share of my police career was actually with the Orange County Sheriff. So as you all know, Orange County patrols here in the city of Stanton. For me, with the Orange County Sheriff, I did all the jobs, we all have a trajectory and we do a bunch of jobs. We always start in the jail, then you promote, and then they send you back to jail. It's like a bad game of Monopoly. Every time you don't pass go, you just go right back to jail. With that said, I got a chance to work with a lot of different places. My last station before, believe it or not, I retired, to your point, sir. I retired with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, was in the city of Yorba Linda. And I think that's where you and I met.
Yes.
Somewhere in Yorba Linda. Right. So, and I was a patrol captain there. And it was my time in Yorba Linda where I really got to learn about really just going to different houses of worship and having discussions about just all kinds of stuff, including security, including kind of ongoing issues and concerns within different houses of worship. And over at the, is it North County Chabad over there?
Correct.
North County Chabad, I'd go down there and spend some time with them. And that was when I really started developing a relationship with the folks down there. And at that time, we kind of started just asking for things. So hopefully some of the stuff I talked to maybe sparks an idea. It sounds like this group is really kind of proactive, but hopefully some of the things that we've done in the past spark some ideas for you all. At that time, we worked with that team over there to do walkthroughs. So I asked to allow my deputies to go into the center and actually do walkthroughs of the entire facility so that the deputies had an idea of the layout. They had an understanding where all the classrooms were, where the locked areas were, where people can get in and get out easily. We kind of exchanged a little bit of information. We talked about what we thought was safe and good about the location. And then it also was helpful for our deputies because we didn't want it to be the first time. If there was ever a problem, we didn't want the first time for our officers to be there to be the day of the emergency. So I throw that out there because truly it's up to us as law enforcement professionals, as police officers, to engage with our community and ask you all, hey, can we come check out your locations where you hang out, where you worship, where you congregate, but at the same time, sometimes agencies are different. So if you have local law enforcement officials, that's just an idea that I'd like to throw out there. We're lucky because people always throw out the, hey, you're always welcome. Come do your reports in our parking lot, which by the way, our deputies do. And they continue to this day to do that in Yorba Linda. So that's the kind of the first thing I'll throw out there is we're just big on relationships, and I know agencies get busy, but I think if you ever had an opportunity to reach out to a law enforcement professional, definitely invite us in. Sometimes we just don't communicate well, and so we kind of need a little bit of a nudge. Some of us, that's why we're cops. It takes a little while for us to pick up some things. That's really important.
In Irvine, I'm in Irvine Catholic Church in Irvine, and Irvine PD has got what they call the Irvine Interfaith Safety Partnership.
Yes.
And we've been doing it for a couple of years where we meet every other month all the houses of worship in Irvine with the Irvine PD, and it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, strongly encourage that. In fact, I think with the Orange County Sheriff, they do something very similar throughout all their patrol areas. Yeah, the Interfaith Advisory, and they meet. Well, it actually segues into another location. Some of you have heard of the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center, otherwise known as the OCIAC. That's controlled and ran through the Sheriff's Department. You're gonna hear me talking about the Sheriff a lot because I'm a big fan. I worked there. They gave me a great career. But they also have a lot of great resources. So through the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center, or the OCIAC, you can simply Google it. You can learn a lot of things about what they do in the county. They have what they call a fusion center. That's where they essentially just look at a bunch of intelligence. They have partners that are federal, like the FBI and some others. And it's a location where they basically just vet out threats to the county, threats to the homeland. And as you all know, threats that aren't happening here, for example, what recently happened in Michigan, or even as far away as overseas, there's a direct nexus to right here in Orange County, and we always want to pay attention to that. So on the OCIAC, you could submit different things. There's something called a SAR, or a suspicious activity report. So I guess that's my second point of the day. If you start noticing anything, whether it's in your community, where you live, and again, whether it's your house of worship, definitely you can reach out to the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center and submit a suspicious activity report, and they'll look into it. And any person, it doesn't have to be a law enforcement professional, any person, any resident, any person can submit that report, and basically they'll look into it and they'll contact you and kind of let you know what happened with that. So I just put that out there because I think, especially now more than ever, we're aware of a lot of things that are going on, but I think it's important for everybody to know that we do have great relationships, not only with other police agencies, but with our federal partners as well. To that end, I was just at a meeting at another group that's ran through the FBI. It's called the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Who's familiar with the Joint Terrorism Task Force? Maybe just one of us, a couple of us. So that's again, that's an FBI-led group where we have officers and deputies embedded in that group. And I tell you all that just so you know that we are communicating. If you turn back the clock maybe 30 or 40 years ago, we were a little territorial. We didn't like to communicate well. We would hardly communicate with each other as police agencies. I don't know what that was. Maybe it was just a little bit of we didn't want other people to outperform us when it comes to protection and safety. The good news is today, and for quite some time now, our law enforcement professionals do work together. So as soon as the recent conflict kicked off, we were down at the JTTF having conversations with our FBI partners. And of course, I know by now you've all heard about the threat of possible drone attacks on the West Coast, and a memo that was released. Yeah, that's something that did come out internally, and that's something that was shared with us internally. And to that end, it kind of ended up, I think, getting leaked out. I'm not quite sure how that got out, to be honest with you. But when that stuff makes its way to us as law enforcement professionals, we kind of lean on our partners and working with them to determine whether or not we need to get out through with them and have that conversation with the community, or if it's even actionable. And in that case, that information made its way in. We hadn't had enough time to as an agency, to really kind of vet that out. And then by the time, before we knew it, it was actually out in public space. So that was an interesting thing that came out that you all were exposed to. But that's the kind of communications we have in-house all the time. And again, we're really looking for any type of actionable intelligence or any type of real life threat to our community. And I will say right now in Orange County, we don't have any intelligence that says specifically there's a specific threat. But I mean, as we all know, when conflicts exist, that we automatically put ourselves in just like naturally in like a code yellow or a code orange, just an internal code yellow or code orange for kind of vigilance. I had a question in the back.
That was my question. Is it real?
Is it
Drones and everything, is it real?
So that I don't know. That intelligence came through the feds, and so they have the information. As a matter of fact, I don't even know the source of that information. So that's a really good question. I will say it was important enough that the communication was put out. Does that kind of make sense? So I think that's more one of those, hey, like better to just be aware of things just in case something happens that we don't have all the information so you're able to react. But again, I don't know the facts on that. I got one question here, then I'll go here.
To follow on that,
please.
So the uniqueness of that communication was that it was leaked to the press. So my question is was that in reality one of typical communications that you get throughout the time, or it was really more serious compared to other that you get and that are not leaked to the press? You get what I mean?
I do, and that's a really good question. We constantly get communications through the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center, and also through other law enforcement agencies. We're constantly sharing information. There's so much information that comes in. To say that was, I wouldn't characterize it as any more or any less threatening than anything else. I will tell you, if it gets to the level where we genuinely think that there's some actionable intelligence, then that information is going to go out not through a leak, it's going to go out through formal channels. So I don't think we were there yet. So I think that's why I didn't make it out. But it was one of those things where there was a desire for really all of our law enforcement partners to just know about it and be aware of it. So that's hopefully that answers your question, sir.
Along the same lines, the report they said from the FBI and the CIA and some other Fed agency to not attend a religious ceremony unless there was armed security guards present, and first thing my wife did was, no, our granddaughter's not going to Sunday school today. So, that's, where did that, have you heard anything about that, or?
So I have not heard anything about that.
And it was sort of strange. I'd never heard anything like that.
That's a unique one, and I've never really ever heard someone say, don't go to your house of worship. That's a pretty serious thing to ask a person to do,
unless there was an armed security guard.
Yeah, that's it. That's very interesting, and I think, like I said, I've never heard of that. I will tell you, like for my church that I go to, they have their own team and they do carry weapons. We've talked about it in Yorba Linda. I've talked to the folks in Yorba Linda and their team and kind of their setup for their carrying of weapons. I know some houses of worship go to that step of even paying for security to come. And actually, I think someone was talking earlier about having a person with an exposed firearm just out there as a presence, which, by the way, I'm a big fan of. I mean, let me just, on the side note, I know my camera, so if I get in trouble, I guess that's that. My honest belief is what you are all doing here is really important. And that means taking kind of the lead on your own security, whether it's yourself personally, whether it's in the places that you socialize or spend your time, and probably the biggest exposure is that house of worship. So to that end, I would hope that any house of worship has moved in that direction anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and even so, I mean, this was, of course, the recent attack in the daycare center.
Yeah.
And I think that's what has my wife worried, and everybody worried, I suppose.
Yeah, and really that seems to be the point of those folks, right? The points of the terrorists is to have us afraid to just live our normal lives. So I'll tell you, as a peace officer, and I think there's someone here who worked in law enforcement prior, and of course all of us as gun carriers or gun enthusiasts, we have a kind of elevated level of vigilance. And I think obviously during moments like this, when you start to see the numbers on the rise, I think vigilance is really important. It ends up being your new normal. And for any law enforcement professional, they understand that really you're always sitting at a level 7 or level 8, and when you get home, maybe you get down to about a level 4, but you're still kind of, like even me, I've got guns in places in my house and stashed in different places, right? So I think that ends up being your new normal. And I think while that's, I think, a good thing, I also don't believe in necessarily, unless there's something, we have a saying, it's intelligence drives decision making. That's what we say in law enforcement and SWAT and all these things. And if you don't have specific information or intelligence, I'm about going about our normal day-to-day business, but just being ready for anything to happen, whether you're walking down the street or going to that house of worship. You had a question?
I'm wondering if the threats become accessible to you as law enforcement or the sheriff's department when it's a lone wolf, like the person who was in Michigan. Is there a threat out there that they didn't see, or that came, was too close to the actual event, or was there never even any threat, but he did it and there would have been no way to prepare for it?
So
Does that make sense?
It does. That case is so new that I just don't have any information to kind of lay me that, but in general. Yeah, the lone wolf actor that we see periodically throughout the country.
About it.
That's right. So the big challenge, and this goes back to kind of the whole see something, say something. As we all know, oftentimes an attack happens, and then afterwards something comes out later from somebody who knew that person, right, or who'd been around. Yeah, that guy's a little odd. But for social reasons or otherwise, we kind of ignore our instincts or our gut, right, or even the desire to kind of report something. And that's where the see something, say something is really important. I will say from a law enforcement perspective, whether or not they have intelligence on it. I mean, it's a large country with a lot of people, and that's where we need the eyes and ears of our community. And we've got, obviously we're watching people, we understand when there's specific threats, especially through our federal partners, and so there's some people that hit the radar. I sat in on debriefs where an action happened, and then they go back and they say, yeah, we were aware of these 2 or 3 people, and we were able to thwart, let's say, a bombing with these 3 people, and we stopped them. And actually I just went and watched a really neat debrief on some folks who were gonna do a bombing, and so it was some of that information about there's some interesting, we'll call it odd behavior, and some background stuff that allowed the feds and their local partners to arrest a group that was going to commit a bombing recently. So it's a combination of us being aware of some of those folks, and then of course folks reporting stuff, again through things like that suspicious activity report, or even contacting your local law enforcement department just to kind of report what we would call suspicious behavior or suspicious activity. So I know that doesn't necessarily totally answer your question perfectly. The answer is sometimes we are aware of it, and sometimes we're just not, especially with lone human beings. We're the most, someone once told me in training, we're the most unique and intelligent creatures, but we're also the most dangerous. We got thumbs, and we got brains that allow us to work differently than other creatures, and so we're unpredictable. And we like to hide our intent. So that's kind of the challenge with us, but that's where communication with our community, engaging, interacting with our community is important, and also having that self kind of awareness and self vigilance is important as well. Hopefully that helps answer a little bit of your question. I'm going to just cover one other thing, and then I'll just keep it open for more questions. Looking at numbers and looking at really hate incidents and hate crimes. The 2026 or 2025 numbers aren't out. I was just doing a little bit of research, but the 2024 numbers did come out last year, right around June. So I'm guessing in the next couple months we'll learn about 2025. Interestingly enough, crime was down in 2025. Now, I want to tell you that I will never take credit for crime being down. Because if I take credit for crime being down, I got to take credit for crime going up. So I'm not going to take any of that credit, okay? And you might read police chiefs and captains throughout the country that are like, in my city, you name the city, crime is down, and it's because of things we're doing. The truth is, crime was down nationwide. I want to say over 20% crime was down, including violent crime, and including my little city. We had 14% reduction in crime overall. With that said,
What about burglaries?
Burglaries? Yeah, generally crime is down. However, things like that, property crimes, will get spikes. It depends on the area where you live and where you're at. Generally, that stuff kind of goes up. Over across the board, all crime was down for the most part. With that said, that doesn't mean anything in terms of what we're talking about, because when it came to hate incidents, there always seems to be an uptick, especially against Jewish people, especially against people of color, or LGBTQ, or any other person that people, basically based on what they perceive that person to be, those crimes tend to kind of stay steady or eke up a little bit. So I want to say from the 2024 numbers, I think hate crimes went up something like 2.3%, something like that. So I throw it out there because, well, generally, as a general rule, we're safe. I think specific to this group, I think it's kind of important really to have that still maintain that vigilance. We never can afford to let our guard down. So I really love the training that you all do. I love the conversations that you all are having. And I think unfortunately, you're almost living in the life of a law enforcement officer. We just don't stop thinking about this stuff. We don't stop training. We don't live in fear, to your point. We try to just move on. I've got kids away at college out in the Midwest. I got a kid at Iowa and a kid in Ohio. And I just, pray and hope for the best. But at the end of the day, I just try to teach my kids about kind of being aware, being vigilant, being aware of the surroundings. And that's what you do. And then you live your life. I think that's my best advice on that end. I hope I've covered it. Did I miss anything?
No.
All right. I would love to answer any questions you might have as well.
A question about the statistics. In the immortal words of a famous Jewish guy from England, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. How much faith do you actually put in that? Because when I hear that number, all I hear is, well, somebody's counting them differently.
Yeah, first of all, I actually tend to agree with that gentleman. It depends on who's using the statistics and to what end. Oftentimes people do use statistics to that end to just bolster things like I said, I can come here and brag about how I single-handedly fixed crime in Brea, right? I mean, that's the reality of things, so there's always a grain of salt. But generally speaking, the numbers that I'm reporting, those are DOJ numbers, and that's for reported crimes or crimes that law enforcement became aware of. There's always an undercurrent of crimes that we're just not aware of. That's as long as there have been people, there have been crimes that don't go reported. So there is definitely a plus or minus on numbers. But generally throughout the entire country, though, those numbers I think are pretty firm throughout the country, and we're all sharing those same numbers. So.
Changing the definitions and...
Absolutely. things like that do happen, absolutely. But in this case, I think we did change our statistic reporting. However, it's actually capturing more information as opposed to capturing less. So, yeah. So, what else do we got?
I got one.
Please.
How do you balance information sharing? For example, you were talking about the drones that it got out there. I never underestimate the power of stupidity in large groups of people. Meaning that, hey, there's a report that there are drones, which means I could see somebody is going to shoot down Bobby's little drone down the street
Sure.
out of the sky.
Sure.
Because it's now an Iranian drone. How do you
Also
balance?
not a bad idea.
Not a drone fan.
That being said, that notwithstanding, the guy who shoots it down now, he's going to be arrested for, brandishing, discharging of a firearm within city limits, yada yada yada, because, hey, he's worried that this is an Iranian drone. How do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's probably why it didn't come out officially, right, through official channels as early as people maybe would have wanted. It's part of it is just kind of understanding human nature, understanding group psychology, understanding your communities. I think the folks who kind of make those decisions weigh all of that into play. I'll be honest with you, I don't know the equation. I will tell you, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about intelligence kind of drives those decisions. As they start to reach a threshold where they believe that the threat is perhaps imminent or likely, then I think that's the threshold for putting out public communication on that stuff. Like, and I'll give you one. We had no actionable intelligence back from the October. It was 2022 or 23. The attack in Gaza, and we had 23. We had no actionable intelligence here in the county that anything was going to happen locally. But proactively, what we did from an enforcement standpoint is we immediately deployed our officers to go out and have conversations, especially in Yorba Linda, and we just posted up a patrol car out there just to hang out. Like, hey, on your downtime, just hang out here. Just hang out here until we kind of get a feel on what's going on. So to that end, I think that's the type of stuff that we can do, is just be a little more present. And oftentimes, I mean, most folks want to victimize. They're opportunists, right? They want to go after folks who are exposed and weak, and that's just how it goes. But then when you have a presence and you're kind of ready, they might take a step back. So that was kind of the things that we do on that. So hopefully that answers that.
I just want to make a comment. I was at the Albert Jewish Community Center a week ago when we had our Krav Maga class. You walk in, they have a big sign, big sticker on the front entrance. It's got a firearm, handgun, and a big circle with a line through it, and it says, no weapons allowed here, even those who are carrying a CCW. So, they're concerned about their liability.
Sure.
But I don't understand that mentality personally. It's what do you think a bad guy is going to look at this? Oh, the sign is here. I won't go in. I'll just step away. And I think houses of worship or institutions, community centers. Do you ever have a conversation with them and say, hey, maybe this is not a good idea, particularly for CCW, or look for other options to allow CCW, who are vetted individuals, to carry? Do they actually, when you talk to them, do you actually think that has any effect with those with an evil intent? They see a sign.
There's a sign.
Yeah. So I have not.
Bullets don't go through signs like that, Fred. What's wrong?
Oh, yeah, I should learn.
Well, I think in the communities that I've worked at, I've engaged with anybody who has that attitude or has that stance. So I haven't had that experience. I don't want to talk out of turn.
Right.
I will say I do encourage the opposite. That's just that's a personal and professional belief that I think it goes back to, there's a long time ago, Robert Peel talked about what police officers were meant for. Robert Peel back in the 1800s, he's like considered in England, he was considered the father of modern policing. And he had this concept that said the police are the public and the public are the police. And he said the only difference between police and public is that we're paid to give full-time attention to this stuff. But that doesn't take the honest or the responsibility or even the efforts from our communities, if that makes sense, right? So we're just paid to give full-time efforts so everybody can go about their business, doing the things they love and that drive, that really fill their cup. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of responsible for kind of ourselves in the community. So while we're always going to be there, I always tell people we're always going to be there, but what are you going to do for the 2 to 3 to 5 minutes it's going to take for us to get there, right? And that's the big question. I'll tell you one last little anecdote. My brother lived in St. Louis. He was in a rougher neighborhood. There was a drive-by shooting, and the officer who responded says, hey, do you have a gun? And my brother's married, and he's got a son and a stepdaughter, and my brother says, well, no. And the officer goes, why not? Yeah, and that just really kind of like for me, it never occurred to him to own a gun, right? So to that end, I think that officer and I would probably had a good conversation and would have agreed on a lot of things. So,
Can you say that to the politicians? Because the politicians keep saying, listen to the experts.
Sure.
And out of like 50 plus sheriffs that I know, plus the chiefs of police, vast majority share what you the opinion what you're just saying. But we heard listen to the experts during COVID,
Sure.
and the experts turned out to be more of a politicians, but nobody listens to the law enforcement professionals expressing the opinion that you just had. So,
well,
don't
you know,
do that.
I'll never stop preaching what I preached, and again, thankfully, I didn't make it up. You know, those words are hundreds of years old. So, but it still stands true to this day. Or over 100 years old, it still stands true to this day. Absolutely, please.
Ties into the statistics. When we look at the statistics of violent crime initiated by CCW, it's almost non-existent. It's negligent. So, you know, we're CCW vetted individuals are not the issue, clearly, and yet we're all lumped together with anyone with firearms, and I think it's just really unfortunate and very narrow-minded. Yeah.
That's essentially the same thing you were saying about the sign. The sign is not anything that makes sense logically. It's purely political.
Yeah.
And in fact, all this stuff is political because it's all looked at with a political eye rather than a meaningful eye, common sense.
Yeah.
And the idea that sign was put there, it was put there because there were people in that shul who said, you know, we don't like guns, put up a sign.
Correct.
Not because anybody thought, gee, this is a stupid thing to do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I accept that people have different views on things. At the end of the day, I have my view, and then that's that. You know, whether I worked at a university campus or where I'm going to my house of worship, you know, I've got my stance, and I'm pretty confident you know where that is. So, yeah. Do you have one more question?
To what extent does the mayor and the city council tie your hands in taking certain actions? Because we do hear about things like, you know, police were told in different situations, police were told to stand down by the mayor.
Should I switch off our camera?
Is this thing on? No, I'll tell you that doesn't happen. Now, it's not in my experiences. Does that happen nationwide or even within the state? My guess is that there's some engagement, interaction. I'm sure there are some council members who have certain very strong opinions towards certain things, and then they probably make either policies or rules or even have conversations with chiefs of police and direct them. Ultimately, it depends on the type of city structure you have. And frankly, as some of you may or may not know, you know, for a city like Brea, we have a 5-member city council team, and then we have a city manager. And the city manager would be who the chief reports to, but ultimately the council picks the city manager, if that kind of makes sense, right? So you have elected officials who are impacted, the person who oversees the chief. So it would be disingenuous for me to deny or deny that any type of influence makes its way through political figures to your law enforcement professionals. That'd be dismissing probably some realities. I've been fortunate enough in the communities that I've worked at, especially here in Orange County, the majority of the communities have been very favorable to us in the work that we do, and they essentially trust us to do our jobs. And when we make mistakes, they hold us accountable as well, but they trust us to do our jobs.
If the city manager told you not to go to a certain event, would you not be able to go to it?
The city manager wouldn't do that. That event wouldn't. You know, and quite frankly, if the city manager thought I shouldn't go, I'd probably tell the city manager, hey, just heads up, I'm not going to that. You know, it wouldn't be the city manager directing me on something like that. At the end of the day, I have a boss. My rule, though, is legal and ethical. And within policy, but policy is under the law. So legal and ethical. If the request is not ethical, then I'm just going to have to decline it respectfully. In other words, you can't do that. Now I get it. I mean, it just depends on the scenario. I'm sure there might be some scenario I can imagine that of 500,000 scenarios where I may want to do it, but it's not the hill to die on, if that makes sense. So ultimately, we all have a boss, and that's the message I get, and it's just not that important, but my threshold is legal and ethical. If she says don't go to that and it's an ethical request, if it's ethical, then okay, it's ethical, right? But if it's for, hey, this political group or because of this this religious group, then yeah, I would decline on that. I would just say, hey, man, that's not the way I want to go with that. And we'd have a really tough conversation. And I'm in a good situation where I'm already retired from one agency, so don't threaten me with a good time in retirement. That's fine, I'll go. so yeah, and that's a position I'm in, but I can't speak on behalf of all chiefs, but that would be my personal stance. So yeah. I don't know how much time we got left, but
Another 5 minutes.
cool, excellent. Please.
I was just ready to applaud. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. Before we do that, so I did bring. I didn't say anything to anybody because, my mom says if you don't have enough for everybody, then don't bring it out at all. But I did bring some. We made some challenge coins in Brea. We hadn't made them in a while. You all familiar with challenge coin, right? So I brought a bunch of these for you all, and I'm gonna leave some extra for you as well, Fred, just for anybody who wasn't here. So I do have these. I'm gonna hand these out. But please, by all means, while I'm doing that, I'll also.
Thank you.
I think I covered all the main big topics. No questions about anything else.
I like your comment. You said that we have to plan for the 2 to 3 minutes between when an incident occurs and law enforcement shows up. At the top of the protocols I've written for our ministry, the goal is to be ready for the 3 to 5 minutes between the time the incident and when first responders show up.
Yeah, to that end, I'm going to give you 2, and if you don't want to pass one down, I'll give you 3 here. That's perfect. So to that end, that's a great point. So I did a lot of things in Yorba Linda. We had issues about, Yorba Linda's got some wildland urban interface fire, basically fire areas, and some of the communities that you live in are kind of exposed to fire. I live in a canyon area. And people would come to me all the time and say, like, what's your plan? And this is a very controversial topic, so that's okay, they can bust me. I don't work in Yorba Linda anymore. Anyway, they used to say, what's your plan, officer or captain? Yeah, what's your plan? What are you gonna do if a fire comes? And to that end, it finally took me about 6 months because I was getting hammered over there with that question. Because they dealt with some tough situations with fires and losing houses. And ultimately where I landed was, I know my plan, what's your plan? Because I know what my officers are going to do. I'll lay it out for you in terms of incident command systems and how we're going to get in a unified command with fire. And my officers are going to do these things. And we're going to go out there. We're going to do this and that. But at the end of the day, I got to get to your house up the hill. And if you're waiting for me to come kind of pick you up and carry you to safety, and my officers to do that, there's say 60,000 of you and 30 of us maybe on a great week, right? So to that end, I think that kind of summarizes. And ultimately, we were able to switch the conversation back to the what's your plan became what's our plan, right? I have a plan, but we all have to have a plan. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the coin. Is there a story behind Shield 22?
So yeah, absolutely. It's not really it's exciting story, but here's what I'll tell you. In Orange County, every police agency has a number, a station number. And so there's no real order or rhyme or reason that I'm aware of. It happens to be that Brea is Station 22. Orange County would be like Station 18. When I was with the sheriff, we were Station 18. And so we have all these different stations, CHP Station 10. So that's our number that was assigned to us, and so we take pride in it, but that's it. That's it. It's just a number that was assigned. It's a designation, so.
It's not caliber.
I like 9, so, and 45.
What do you carry?
Right now I carry a Glock. I will tell you that all the new cops, they're switching it over now, but staccatos are the hot thing. Like all our SWAT guys carry staccatos because everybody wants a Ferrari in their holster. So of course I have a staccato, right? I have one at home, okay? And then I just bought a new Glock for off duty. I just bought a Glock 43X that I'm gonna start carrying off duty.
Oh, the stuff we can't get.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
We can still buy it.
I'm now Texan. I don't have any problem.
That's right. You can buy his and walk out of the store with
In
it.
fact, I can go to the pharmacy and when I get my drugs,
And I'll take a Glock.
I'll take my Glock with my
Advil, and there you go. It's perfect, yeah.
I want to thank you once again for being here. Just absolutely wonderful to have you, see you, and your explanation, your speech is wonderful. So thank you so much.
Absolutely a pleasure. Should look over here. Excellent.
And he gets his, did you get this last time?
No, I did not. I'm excited.
Bullets&Bagels.
Hey.
When you go to Chabad.
Yes, I'll throw that on.
So there you go. Let's look over here.
All right. There you go.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You can join us anytime as as an attendee, as a member, or we'll have you back again to speak. So again, it's a pleasure seeing you.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
Just great.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we get started, I'm going to do a quick safety brief, and then we'll go downstairs. Is anyone here a first-time shooter or never shot in years? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. We have Justin, raise your hand. We have one new shooter.
I have
Stella.
excellent.
Justin, so
I'm gonna leave a stack over
I
here
want to remind you,
for the guys.
we're all volunteers.
All my subject matter experts are retired correctional officers, so they say what you say. I'm already retired, I can retire.
I'm not kidding. Raise your hand and we can hear Justin will be coming down after you're done with Stella.
My Ruger 22 there, Mark, and it's like, it's funny, it's like, pick up your drugs here, there's a gun counter.
Don't forget, try out all the guns that David and Jason brought. They're gracious and brilliant and remarkable firearms. You get to try them. Nowhere else can you try guns like that except with us. So again, avail yourself. Lastly, a quick safety brief. I don't have the cheat sheet in front of me, but basically keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Remember, every firearm is loaded. Every firearm is loaded. And never assume it's not loaded. Aim down range. You'll be shooting down range. Always know what's beyond your target. In this case, it's a rubber berm. So again, straight down your lane. Don't shoot to the left, to the right, up or down. Straight at the targets will be in front of you. For us, the most important thing is keeping your firearms on the table in front of you. Do not take them out of a back box or carton or bag behind you. Bring it out to the table where the target is located in front. That's where you take the firearm out. Put the firearm back in into the container before you leave the range. Or if you move to a different bay or lane, ask one of the instructors, range safety officers, to assist you with that. We usually would like to have you repackage it and move to another lane if you have to do that. Because there's so few of you, we could all have our own lane out there today. It should be no problem whatsoever. Again, if the firearm drops over the edge of the table, don't reach over to get it. We'll call a ceasefire.
If you drop it at all, let it fall.
We'll help you with that. Also, you can reload your firearms. Never
You can reload magazines.
The table behind you. Do not take your firearm behind you. You should never, ever, ever see an exposed firearm behind the tables. It should only be up in front. If you can use the rentals, by the way, at FT3 Tactical, that's free to the club. You just have to purchase their ammunition. They'll give you a little container, and when you move the firearm in the container, if you're not sure how to do this, it has to be unloaded. It should be not around the chamber, the magazine out, and the action should be open. If you're not sure about that,
If you rent a firearm before you leave the range, make sure you consult with either Justin or myself, please.
because it's exposed.
And the reason we've had this is
Yeah.
people have taken loaded firearms out of the bay to the front counter.
At the counter. So
Okay?
you-
It's absolutely crucial. If you rent a firearm from the deck, consult with us before you leave the bay to return it to the rental counter.
That's critical,
Please.
because it's not in an enclosed container, it's exposed. So, and we've never had a serious issue in 12 years, hundreds of events, and not an issue. We want to keep that record going forward. So our statistics.
Probably the same guy
stay
that
the
did
same.
45.
All right, so that's it. Any questions? Otherwise, go downstairs and enjoy yourself, and
want
look
to
forward
brag.
to seeing you hopefully sooner
In
rather
Los
than later.
Angeles, getting a CCW is a big deal.
Yeah.
I remember